Jeremiah chapter 1 verses 16. I will punish my people because they have sinned. They have abandoned me. They have offered sacrifices to other gods and have made idols and worshiped them. That verse in particular is precisely irrelevant in this era as we see today. There are those who are partaking in that form of worship knowingly and also unknowingly. When God said they have abandoned me, it means that they have departed from the faith and offered sacrifices to other gods. Many foreign gods and goddesses were worshipped in Israel, and the Old Testament is full of references to foreign deities such as Baal, Ashtoreth, Asherah, Chemosh, and Molech. Asherah is the goddess the Israelite worshiped during the time of Jeremiah's ministry. She goes by Ishtar and the Queen of Heaven. Jeremiah chapter 44 verses 15 through 17. Then all the men who knew that their wives were burning incense to other gods, along with all the women who were present, a large assembly, and all the people living in Lower and Upper Egypt, said to Jeremiah, "We will not listen to the message you have spoken to us in the name of the Lord. We will certainly do everything we said we would. We will burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and will pour out drink offerings to her just as we and our ancestors, our kings and officials did in the towns of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. At that time we had plenty of food and were well off and suffered no harm." Asherah, Ishtar, Queen of Heaven, all the same. The goddess of war and sexual love. She was originally worshipped in Sumer under the name Inanna and was later worshipped by the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians under the name Ishtar. As a fertility goddess, Asherah was thought to bestow life, health, and innumerable blessings upon mankind. God has warned the nation of Israel not to be influenced by pagan nations, neighboring nations that was close to Israel. The Israelite was a peculiar nation. It was God's precious people. And he wanted to keep them away from being influenced or intoxicated by demonic entities and pagan worship. All these gods and goddesses from ancient history, going back as far as the Assyrians, Babylonians, the Greeks, the Egyptians, they all worship the same thing. They just had a different name and different titles, but they were all in one. Right now we just call them sins. There's a demon behind a specific sin, and many are actually worshiping it because we are becoming friends with demons, just like how ancient nations were participating in worshiping these demons. Just because they call it gods and goddesses or deities, there's really no difference. They're still the same demons. Incense is believed to create an atmosphere of worship, to invite spirits in. And this is often displayed around pagan altars. If you're not familiar with the word pagan, I published a video called Gentiles, Word Study. You can just check it out in the description box below if you have time. Religious use of incense has its origins in antiquities. The burnt incense may be intended as a sacrificial offering to various deities or to serve as an aid in prayer. It is reputed to be a method of purifying the surroundings, bringing forth an assembly of Buddhas, different gods, demons, and the like. Jeremiah chapter 44 verses 3. They provoke my anger with all their wickedness. They burn incense and worship other gods that they do not even know, nor your ancestors have ever known either. In Exodus chapter 34 verses 14, It says that God is a jealous God and he wants no other God before him. Imagine if you caught your spouse having a romantic evening with another person that is not you. That's what it's like to God. It's a form of cheating. Revelation chapter 5 verses 8. Revelation chapter 8 verses 3. A gold bowl full of incense are the prayers of God's people. 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verses 15. We are a fragrance of Christ to God among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. Ephesians chapter 5 verses 2. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. Philippians chapter 4 verses 18. Your gifts are a sweet-smelling sacrifice, a fragrant offering that is acceptable and pleasing to God. So if we can compare all those verses together into one sentence, in Revelation we have the prayers of God's people, and then we have the people of God. We have Jesus' sacrifice, and then we have our offerings or our sacrifices. Jesus' sacrifice, God's people, their prayers and their gifts are living incense.